She left the window open. Again. But this time, it wasn't the breeze or the cold draft that got to me, it was the smell. Cinnamon. We didn't have cinnamon. We hadn't had cinnamon in the house since she claimed it gave her migraines 2 years ago. I stopped buying it. I threw out the little jar that used to sit next to the coffee. I even stopped eating those cinnamon swirl pastries I loved because she said she could smell it on my breath and it made her nauseous. But there it was. Cinnamon. Floating through the bedroom like it belonged there. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Maybe it was from the neighbors. Maybe it was one of those memory trigger smells that sneak up on you out of nowhere. And then I saw the cup. White. Ceramic. Sitting on her nightstand. Steam was still rising. That's when I realized someone had been here. Recently. Too recently. I stood in the doorway of the bedroom, staring at the mug like it was evidence from a crime scene. Because to me, it was. I hadn't even left the house for long. Maybe 25 minutes. I just ran out to grab more printer ink because she said she needed to finish her resume tonight. I thought I was being helpful. Supportive. Like always. The bed wasn't messed up. Nothing was out of place. And that's what scared me the most. Whoever had been here was careful. Calculated. Comfortable. I walked through the house, not saying anything. Not calling her name. Just listening. Then I noticed the back door. Not open, but unlocked. She always locks the back door. Always. Every time. She came into the kitchen 5 minutes later, towel around her neck, pretending like she'd just gotten back from a jog. Except her cheeks weren't flushed. Her ponytail wasn't damp. And there wasn't a single drop of sweat on her shirt. She looked surprised to see me. I asked her, "Who made tea?" She blinked. "What?" "The cup on your nightstand." "Oh," she said too quickly. "That was me. Earlier. Before your errand." Steam doesn't rise from tea an hour later. But I didn't argue. I just stared at her while she fiddled with her phone like it had something fascinating on it. And then I saw the corner of a text pop up before she could tilt it away. "Tell him you were jogging. I'm 5 minutes away." My heart thudded so hard I thought she could hear it. I walked out. Not because I was strong, but because I was afraid I'd say something stupid. Or cry. Or both. I drove around the block. I sat in a gas station parking lot and watched the sunset turn the clouds into bruises. I didn't even know what I was doing. I just knew I couldn't go back and right away. Not yet. When I finally returned, she was in the shower. The tea was gone. The back door was locked again. And her phone was nowhere in sight. I stood in the hallway and realized something that made my skin crawl. She didn't even seem scared that I might have caught her. And that was worse than any confession. Because it meant she didn't think I would do anything about it. And maybe she was right. But that was before her affair partner made the mistake of showing up. Because what happened after he rang the doorbell? It flipped everything upside down, and not in the way anyone expected. It was the knock that did it. Not the sound itself, but the rhythm of it, confident, steady, like someone who didn't think twice before showing up. I was still standing near the hallway, holding a half-folded towel, when it came. 3 quick raps. Not urgent. Not unsure. The kind of knock that expected to be let in. I didn't move at first. I just listened. She was in the bedroom, humming to herself like nothing was wrong. The doorbell hadn't rung. Just that knock. My chest tightened. I already knew who it was. I couldn't explain how, but I knew. The same way animals know a storm's coming. When I opened the front door, the man on the other side smiled at me. He had dimples. I remember that, weirdly. Dimples and perfect posture, like he'd rehearsed this exact moment in his head and everything was going according to plan. He wore a fitted jacket and a smug expression that made me want to crawl out of my own skin. "Hey," he said casually. "Is she home?" I stood there, blinking at him like a broken robot. I didn't ask who she was. I didn't need to. His eyes flicked over my shoulder like I was a doorman. Like I was in the way. "She's in the bedroom," I said, voice quiet, almost hoarse. Showering off her fake run. That stopped him. Not for long, but long enough. "She told me she was going to handle this," he said, as if I was the complication. "You know. Be honest." I laughed. It came out choked, more like a cough. "Right. Honest. With me." He shifted, clearly uncomfortable now. "Look, man, I'm not trying to stir things up. We didn't plan for it to happen this way. But I cut him off. "Did she tell you I made her quit cinnamon?" His face twisted. "What?" "She said it gave her migraines. But now she drinks cinnamon tea." "Did she tell you that?" My voice was rising, and I hated it. I sounded pathetic. Like a guy who cared about tea while his wife was sleeping with someone else. "I think we got off on the wrong foot," he said, stepping back slightly. I almost slammed the door in his face. But I didn't. I let him stand there in the cold, shifting from foot to foot, waiting for me to explode. But I didn't do that either. I just stood there, with every muscle locked, and whispered, "She's all yours." His eyebrows raised. "She's packed. Bags are in the closet. You can take her, and the cinnamon, and the fake gym clothes. Just do me one favor. Don't let her pretend she's the victim in your version of the story. She's very good at that." I shut the door before he could respond. The silence afterward was unreal. Not peaceful, not calming, just hollow, like something had been ripped out of the walls. She came out 10 minutes later, hair wrapped in a towel, looking confused. "Did someone come by?" "Yeah," I said flatly. "He's waiting outside." Her expression didn't change right away. She didn't look shocked. She looked inconvenienced. And that broke something I didn't even know was still holding on inside me. "You told him you were going to be honest," I said. "Was that going to be before or after tonight's fake job interview?" She narrowed her eyes. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Then tell me what I'm talking about. Please. Just once. Lie to me straight to my face. I'll pretend I believe you. I'm good at that. I've had years of practice." She didn't say anything. Just stood there, towel on her head like a crown made of steam and guilt. I turned my back. "He's waiting. Don't make him wait too long." She left without saying goodbye. I didn't watch her go. I didn't cry. I just went into the kitchen, took the cinnamon jar she had hidden behind the vitamins, and smashed it in the sink. The scent filled the room instantly. It was sweet, warm, familiar, and it made me sick. But the story didn't end there. Not even close. Because the next morning, I woke up to a voicemail from an unknown number. And it was his voice, the affair partner. He was crying. And what he told me changed everything. The voicemail came in at 6:17 a.m., a time when the world is still blurry and your thoughts haven't caught up to your reality yet. I didn't recognize the number. I almost ignored it. But something made me listen. It started with heavy breathing, then a pause, then his voice, trembling. "Hey, this is probably weird. I'm sorry for calling, man. I don't know who else to talk to." I sat up in bed, the phone cold in my hand. He continued, "She's gone. She packed a bag around 4 a.m. and just left. No note. No explanation. Nothing. I thought maybe she went to you, or maybe. I don't know. I just thought you should know. I thought I was helping her escape a miserable life. But now I'm wondering if I was just her next stop. If I was disposable too." My stomach twisted. He let out a shaky breath on the recording. And then, in the softest, most broken voice, added, "Did she ever tell you about December 14th? She made it sound like that was the day everything changed for her. Then it ended. Just like that." I sat frozen, staring at the wall, trying to remember what happened on December 14th. I couldn't recall anything monumental. No fight. No anniversary. No breakdown. Just a random Tuesday in a string of forgettable days. Or so I thought. I searched my email, my texts, my photos. And there it was. A photo I had taken of her, blurry and unremarkable. She was standing in the kitchen, holding a grocery bag, smirking at me like I'd said something mildly stupid. The timestamp, December 14th, 7:42 p.m. That was the night I came home early from the office because my car battery had died, and the junior tech had given me a jump. I remember how she looked startled when I walked in, even though I wasn't that early. I brushed it off back then. Thought maybe she was just tired. Now I knew better. I kept replaying his words in my head. "Did she ever tell you about December 14th? No. She didn't tell me anything about anything, ever." I realized that every important moment in her mind probably existed outside of me. And every detail I clung to, it was just a background blur in her private film. By noon, I was pacing. I didn't care about her anymore, not in the traditional sense. But I needed closure. I needed to understand what exactly had happened to my life. And to do that, I had to talk to him. The man I hated. The man she chose. So I called the number back. He answered immediately. "Yeah." His voice was dry, worn out. "It's me," I said. "Where are you?" He gave me an address. Some second-floor apartment on the east side of town. I hesitated. I didn't know what I was hoping to find, but I needed something. Anything. When I arrived, the hallway reeked of burnt toast and cat litter. His door was already cracked open like he knew I'd come. He looked worse in daylight, like someone had fast-forwarded through 3 months of exhaustion and dumped it all on him overnight. His hair was messy, his shirt wrinkled, and his eyes bloodshot. He offered me coffee. I declined. We sat in silence for a few moments before he finally spoke. She lied to me too, you know? Told me you were some abusive, controlling, lifeless man. I believed it. I gave a half laugh. That's probably the most exciting version of me I've ever heard. She used to talk about freedom, like you were a cage. But the second I tried to actually be close to her, she pulled away, started hiding things, calling me by the wrong name. My head jerked up. She called you by the wrong name? He nodded slowly. Once she called me Brent. Another time, it was Adam. Neither were my name, which meant they weren't his either. How many people were there? I asked, but the question wasn't really meant for him. He rubbed his temples. I think she likes the chase, the illusion. Once someone actually loves her, it's over. I wanted to hate him. I still did, a little. But he wasn't what I expected. He wasn't the smug affair partner anymore. He was just another discarded souvenir on her shelf. Before I left, he handed me a key. She dropped this on my nightstand before she left. No explanation. Just said, give this to him if he ever shows up. It was a small silver key with the word EMORY engraved on it. What is this? I asked. He shrugged. I figured you'd know. But I didn't. Not yet. That key opened something much worse than a door. I drove home with the key burning a hole in my pocket. EMORY. 5 letters. It meant nothing to me. At least, not at first. Not until I started tearing the house apart. I checked drawers, closets, suitcases, even the attic crawl space I hadn't touched since we moved in. Nothing. The key didn't match any door or lock in the house. It didn't open the small jewelry box she kept on her dresser, or the lockbox in the garage labeled taxes. I was starting to wonder if it was all just a mind game. Her last little trick before vanishing into the fog of whoever she became next. And then I found the bag. It was shoved behind the insulation panel in the basement. Not hidden in any elaborate way, just wedged behind a loose board like she hadn't had time to come up with something smarter. Inside was an old leather-bound journal, a crumpled scarf I'd never seen before, a cracked cell phone without a SIM card, and a small black box with a silver lock on the front. The key slid in like it had been waiting. My hands were shaking when I opened it. Inside were photos. Hundreds of them. Polaroids. Printed ones. Selfies. All of her. All over the place. Some in hotel rooms. Some on rooftops. Some in the back seat of cars. But what gutted me the most weren't the locations or the clothes, or lack thereof. It was the faces beside her. Different men. All of them. Smiling. Kissing. Grinning like they had won some prize. And she always had the same look. Half amused. Half detached. Like she knew the moment would expire, and she couldn't wait for it to. Under the stack of photos was a spiral notebook. Not a diary exactly. More like case notes. Names, dates, short descriptions. Saw Miles again. Predictable. Very clingy. Had to lie about a miscarriage to end it cleanly. Greg didn't even notice I used his credit card to book my own weekend away. Cute, but so boring. Wesley's still in the fog. It's almost impressive how long he's lasted without questioning anything. My hands locked around the paper as if holding tighter would stop the words from being true. She wrote about me like I was a placeholder. A silent, obedient background prop. Something to come back to, not someone to love. I sat on the cold basement floor for what felt like an hour, flipping through pages like a man possessed. Every now and then I found my name. Just a footnote between her adventures. Told Wesley I had food poisoning so I could get out of the ski trip. Met up with someone new instead. He bought me a scarf. The same scarf that was in the bag. She didn't even bother hiding it. Not really. She just buried it and assumed I'd never look. Because that's who I was to her. A man who didn't look too closely. Who accepted whatever story was handed to him. I carried the box back upstairs like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I didn't cry. That would have been merciful. I just felt hollow, like my entire body had been scooped out and replaced with sawdust. Around midnight, I couldn't take it anymore. I called the number. The guy, her last one. I needed him to hear it too. I needed someone else to feel the burn. He answered, groggy. Yeah. I found it, I said. The EMORY box. There was silence. Then a quiet, what was in it? She documented us. All of us. Like we were study subjects. You, me, others. She had a system. He sighed. I think I knew. Deep down. Did you love her? I asked. I thought I did. I swallowed. What if she comes back? Another pause. Then you burn it. All of it. And don't look back. But I couldn't. Not yet. Because 2 days later, someone else came to my door. A woman. She looked tired. Hollow. She was holding one of the same scarves. "Are you Wesley?" she asked. I nodded, slow and guarded. I think we both knew her. She didn't ask to come in. She just stood there, half shivering, clutching that same scarf like it was all that tethered her to the moment. Her eyes were rimmed red, her hair pulled back hastily like she hadn't expected to be seen by anyone. I stepped aside without a word, not because I trusted her, but because I couldn't take standing in that silence anymore. She sat on the edge of my living room chair like she didn't deserve to take up space. Her hands were shaking as she set the scarf on the coffee table. It was nearly identical to the one in the basement bag, same color, same fringe, same faint floral pattern that I now realized I had seen in more than one photo. Except this one had something mine didn't. A small, barely visible letter, art embroidered in the corner. "I found your number," she began, written in the back of a notebook that she left behind. It was hidden in a locked drawer of my apartment. She gave me that scarf after our last dinner together. Said she was moving away. Vanishing, basically. "You were close?" I asked. She nodded. "For 3 years." I blinked. "You were her partner?" "Lover," she offered with a sad, tired smile. "Yes. I know. You're the husband. I was the secret. Or one of them, apparently." The room seemed to bend inward, like the air was too thick to sit in. I leaned forward, elbows on knees, trying to keep myself grounded. "What made you come here?" She reached into her coat pocket and slid a small USB drive onto the table. "She left this for me." I didn't look at it right away. I thought maybe it was just photos or old memories, and I didn't want to go through it. But last night, I did. And I think you should see what's on it. I stared at the drive like it might bite. "What is it?" She called it her contingency vault, she said, barely above a whisper. "It's not just photos. It's videos, voice recordings, private messages, and a folder labeled insurance. It's disturbing. Why would she keep that?" I don't think she trusted anyone, not even herself. I think it gave her control, knowing she could ruin every person she'd ever been with if they crossed her. I didn't ask if I was in the videos. I already knew I was. Somewhere between the text messages and the blurry clips of hotel rooms, I was probably just another timestamp. Another fool saying "I love you" to someone who was already somewhere else in her mind. She looked at me for a long time before finally saying, "She manipulated me too. She made me believe she was escaping some cruel, joyless life." But the more I dug into that drive, the more I realized she wasn't escaping anything. She was hunting. The word hit me like ice down the spine. Hunting. It made sense. The patterns. The rapid changes. The men. The women. The way she shaped herself into whatever each of us needed most, until she didn't. Until she was done. And just like that, I remembered the word EMORY on the key. Not a name. A place. There was a storage facility about 30 minutes outside of town. I remember driving past it on the way to my old office job. Its sign was faded, but still legible. EMORY Self-Storage. 24-hour access. No questions asked. I stood up suddenly, as if a magnet had pulled me to my feet. "I think I know where the rest of it is." She looked up. "You're going there?" "I have to. I'm coming with you." Part of me wanted to say no, but I didn't. Because some unspoken current had already formed between us, two ghosts orbiting the same collapsed star. 30 minutes later, we pulled up in front of the rusted gate. I used the keypad code scrawled on the bottom of the EMORY key. The gate creaked open like it hadn't moved in weeks. Maybe months. Unit 117. It was near the back, tucked between two larger units. A dim bulb flickered overhead as I turned the key. The lock popped with a soft click, and the door groaned upward. The air inside was stale and cold. What we saw made both of us take a step back. Shelves. Dozens of them. Labeled folders. Photos. USB drives. Journals. Everything cataloged and numbered like a twisted archive. Each one marked with a name. A date. A rating out of 10. And then we saw it. A box labeled Final Entry, Use Only if Found. Inside wasn't a file or a drive. It was a handwritten letter. And it was addressed to me. The envelope was thick. Heavy. Handwritten in her sharp, looping script. The kind she used for birthday cards and passive-aggressive notes stuck to the fridge. My name was scrawled across the front. No greeting, no warmth, just Wesley, like she was labeling a file. I didn't want to open it. Something in my gut said don't. But I did anyway. The letter inside was 5 pages long. The first line read, "If you're reading this, it means I've either disappeared or chosen to end the story on my terms. And since you found this storage unit, That means I've failed at keeping things clean. My hands started to tremble. You were never supposed to follow the trail. You were supposed to grieve quietly, spiral a little, maybe date someone plain and safe, and then forget I ever happened. That was the plan. I paused, the words blurring. The woman beside me, the one who had come to warn me, help me, whatever it was, leaned over, scanning the page. Her face was pale. Her hand covered her mouth. You always underestimated me, Wesley. That was your charm. You were so good at loving what you thought I was. It made it easier to stay, to lie, to experiment. The letter went on to describe a timeline I hadn't even known existed. Relationships that overlapped with mine. Jobs she fabricated. Trips she claimed were business-related that were, in fact, cover stories for entire weekends spent with people whose names I recognized only from receipts she forgot to hide. Then came the part that made my ears ring. There's a safety deposit box in my name. If anything happens to me, if someone claims they loved me too much or not enough, or finds themselves unraveling, I want them to find it. Because inside is the only thing that matters now. Proof. Proof of what? The final paragraph answered that. You were part of a larger test. I know that sounds inhuman, and maybe it is, but I needed to know if people could be loved without ever truly knowing the person in front of them. You passed, in your own way. You loved the mask so well, I almost forgot I was wearing it. There was no signature, just the last line, scribbled sideways at the bottom of the final page. Burn this letter. And forget the code word. Orchid. Orchid. That word unlocked something in the USB she had left with the other woman. We didn't know it until we plugged it in again. This time into my laptop, back at my house, with the lights dimmed and the sound turned low. Orchid wasn't just a word. It was a folder. Inside it was a collection of video files, each one named after a person, each one time-stamped. Every face in the EMORY storage unit had a digital twin in this archive, including mine. I clicked mine last. It was a video of her, alone, talking to the camera like she was giving a presentation. Wesley. Sweet, unremarkable Wesley. I knew he'd be loyal. I chose him because he was the safest option, the one least likely to ask questions. I needed a control group. I needed to see how long someone could stay blind. He lasted longer than expected. 9 years. That's impressive. Most of them cracked by year 4. My skin went cold. The moment I knew he'd never leave, even if he suspected, was the lasagna night. I lied about a work call, whispered into a muted phone to nobody, just to see if he'd listen through the door. He did, but he said nothing. That's when I knew I was safe. That night had haunted me for months. And now I knew she set it up. She knew I'd listen. She staged it like a scene in a play, just to test me. I wasn't her partner. I was her audience. The other woman shut the laptop. She looked ill. She's not just manipulative, she whispered. She's pathological. I nodded. No, she's something else. We sat in silence, both trying to breathe in a house that suddenly felt 10 degrees colder. Then, like some kind of cruel punctuation, my phone buzzed. An anonymous number. Just one sentence in the text. Did you find it all, or do you want the rest? I read it 3 times before showing her. She stared at the screen, then up at me. She's not gone, she whispered. No, I said quietly. She's watching. We didn't sleep. Not that night. Not with her voice still echoing through the room, her eyes frozen on the laptop screen, daring us to look deeper. And we certainly didn't sleep after the message. Did you find it all, or do you want the rest? Arrived like a knife slipped under the door. The other woman, she finally told me her name was Lynette, paced the living room in her socks, one hand clenched around the scarf like it was some kind of charm. I sat at the kitchen table, phone on the counter, staring at the screen like another message might crawl out of it. At 3:12 a.m., it did. Check the mailbox. I don't know why I went. Maybe I had lost the ability to resist her. Maybe, in some broken corner of me, I needed to see how far the rabbit hole went. Or maybe I was just tired of wondering. I stepped into the cold, the kind that felt like it was seeping through your ribs. The mailbox was empty, at least, at first. Then I noticed the folded paper, wedged under the lip of the metal like it didn't want to be found easily. On it was a list. No names, just coordinates. 7 sets. GPS locations written in her unmistakable handwriting. At the bottom, final truth. Go alone. I brought it back inside, held it up in the air, and Lynette looked at it like it might explode. We shouldn't follow this, she said. It's bait. Of course it's bait. I replied. But what is she fishing for? She didn't answer. We argued for an hour. I told her I'd go alone, like the note demanded. She said that was exactly what someone like her wanted. Not confrontation, control. She needed to puppeteer the aftermath, to keep pulling strings even when she wasn't in the room. Eventually, we agreed on a compromise. I'd go. She'd wait nearby. We'd stay connected by phone the whole time. She didn't trust me to think clearly, and I didn't trust myself either. The first coordinate led to a public park. A swing set creaking in the wind. A bench. A plastic bag taped under it. Inside, a flash drive. The second location, a church parking lot, behind the last row of cars. Tucked into a rusted drain pipe, another bag, another drive. Each location was the same. 7 in total. By the time I finished, my glove compartment looked like evidence storage. Back home, we cataloged them one by one, labeled them in order. And then, cautiously, we began to watch. Each drive contained recordings, but not of her. Not directly. They were surveillance clips, grainy, jumpy footage of conversations, hotel lobbies, restaurants, people talking, kissing, arguing, overlapping stories, different partners, different timelines. She had filmed everything, not just her lovers, but people who had no idea they were part of anything. Waitresses she befriended for a week. An Uber driver she told secrets to. A neighbor who gave her spare keys to feed their cat while they were away. Case study 14A. Told him I loved him. Counted how long he hesitated before saying it back. 6 seconds. Not great. Case study 21D. Married man. Weak-willed. Very attached to his mother. Used guilt tactics. Reacted poorly to distance. Case study 36C. Unsure if she's aware I'm recording. Rewatching her panic is interesting. Shows real-time emotional override. Case study 01A. Wesley. Final entry. Controlled subject. Longest exposure window. Mild to severe emotional fragmentation. Outcome. Inconclusive. She cataloged our emotions like data. Labeled us like test tubes. And then came the last folder. It was password protected. Lynette stared at it. Try Orchid again? I did. Nothing. Then I remembered something from the letter. A single phrase that hadn't made sense at the time. If you think it's the end, look for the first place you ever looked away. That night came rushing back. The one with the cinnamon tea. The phone call. Her whisper behind the door. I had stood there, frozen, afraid to knock. I typed, door frame. It unlocked. Inside was a single video. 38 seconds long. It was her, in a dark room, staring at the camera. You kept thinking it was about love. But I was never testing love, Wesley. I was testing limits. Yours. Theirs. Mine. How far can someone go before they become someone else entirely? You almost made it. But not quite. You looked away. And that's when I knew. Goodbye. Then the screen went black. Lynette whispered, she's not done. I nodded, numb, because I'd seen something in the reflection behind her. In that last video, a calendar. A note pinned to the wall. Tomorrow's date. And a name underneath it. Mine. I didn't sleep that night, not from fear, but from a strange, electric clarity. I kept staring at the paused frame of her last message, her face frozen in that half-smile. The timestamp on the video matched tomorrow's date, the same day she'd marked under my name on the calendar behind her in the reflection. But there was no context, no location, no threat, just my name and the day. I realized then that the final move wasn't about her watching me. It was about me watching myself. I'd been staring into her mirror for so long, trying to understand her, her manipulations, her lies, her tests, that I forgot to ask the one thing that truly mattered. Who was I outside of her? What would I become if I stopped chasing the ghost she left behind? By morning, I'd made my decision. I called Lynette. Told her I wasn't going to open anything else. No more drives. No more codes. No more dark rooms and whispered clues. She hesitated at first, then said something I hadn't expected. Thank you. We met that afternoon, but not in some cryptic location, not at a storage unit or another breadcrumb in her twisted puzzle. We sat on a park bench beneath a tree, the kind that shed slow, golden leaves in the October wind. We didn't talk about her. Not for the first 10 minutes. We talked about real things. Our jobs. Our parents. How she used to play piano as a kid but stopped because someone told her she'd never be good enough. I told her I hadn't cried in almost 10 years until the day I found a scarf in a bag behind drywall. We laughed, a little broken, but honest. Then, quietly, she said, "What if we burned it all?" I looked at her. "You mean the footage?" The notes. All of it, she said. The drives, the letters, the EMORY box, everything. She wanted us to hold on to it. That's how she stays. She only exists if we keep watching. There was a long pause. Then I nodded. That night, we did it together. We drove to a secluded beach just outside town. Windy, gray, empty. The kind of place no one goes in the off-season. I brought the EMORY box. She brought the USBs and the letters she had kept. We poured everything into a rusted barrel we found near the rocks and lit it. It didn't burn dramatically. There was no cinematic flash of flame, no screams from the smoke. Just slow, steady fire, curling paper and melting plastic, dissolving faces that never truly belonged to us. And when it was done, I felt free. Not healed. Not entirely. But free. Weeks passed. Then months. I didn't hear from her again. No cryptic messages. No new files. Just silence. And in that silence, life crept back in. Lynette and I kept in touch, first out of shared trauma, then out of something warmer. By spring, we were meeting twice a week, sometimes for coffee, sometimes just to sit quietly and not feel watched. There were no expectations. No games. Just truth, spoken in small, brave pieces. I started therapy. I reconnected with my sister, who I'd pushed away during the chaos. I planted mint in the backyard because I realized I never actually hated gardening. I just didn't want to admit I needed peace. And one Sunday morning, nearly a year after everything collapsed, I made my own cinnamon tea. Not because of her. Because I wanted to. And it didn't make me sick. It made me whole.